For those of you who enjoy quirky facts, trivial anomalies, and the highly detailed information about World War II, then this video is for you. You will definitely take something away that you probably didn't know beforehand. First, we'll look at how to analyze and spot a fake World War II photograph or a modern event recreation. Keep in mind that deception is probably not even involved in most cases. It could be that a bunch of reenactors are just having fun and taking pictures. Let's look at a picture that's easy to tell that it wasn't taken in World War II. There are three things that make this photo suspect. Do you see them? It's not the fact that it's in color, because there are many original color World War II photos, even though they're not the majority. The first thing that is apparent is the extremely high resolution. The second is the gloss on the helmets of the Soviet soldiers. The third is less obvious, but the winter cap, even though a very close replica, looks a little off. We'll go over the winter cap in a little bit. These are Soviet helmets from an artillery unit. Notice how rough the helmets are. Next, this is an actual Soviet helmet. Notice there is no gloss or sheen. Here's a Soviet column. Back to the winter cap. Notice that there is extra stitching in the modern version and it's a little too clean. Now let's move on to the next item, equipment. Although there could be some exceptions, you can date a photo by what equipment and accessories the soldiers have. For example, this is a picture of a German motorcycle unit. I'm pretty sure that the picture on the left is the invasion of France in 1940. The picture on the right may be in the Soviet Union. Notice the nice coats in both pictures. It appears that later in the war, after 1942, that these wore out or weren't reissued due to wartime shortages. Notice this in the next two photos. Later it appears that the German motorcyclist may have had a standard overcoat. One of the things that is obvious is that up to 1943, German soldiers had black boots that were called jackboots, or Marschstiefel, which translates to marching boots. These were made of a high-quality leather and were very rugged and durable. However, as the cost of war mounted, jackboots weren't issued to new soldiers nor reissued as replacements as much as before. They were expensive to produce due to the amount of leather on the leg portion, and they were replaced with lace-up ankle boots similar to what the British Commonwealth soldiers wore. Also, the quality of the leather suffered in later issued jackboots. These German soldiers are marching through Paris in what I believe is 1944. Notice the lack of jackboots. There were still some jackboots issued later in the war, and it seems that German officers still received them. This picture is a great example of this. This photo was taken after January 1944 because the Panzerschreck has a blast shield. This appears to be a German officer instructing recruits on how to use the weapon. Notice that the instructor has boots, and the rest were issued lace-up ankle boots. It also appears that the SS still had jackboots near the end of the war. The Wehrmacht had a field cap called a Bergmütze, also officially known as the M43. It originated with the old Austrian-Hungarian Empire, and German Gebirgsjäger, which were German mountain troops, adopted it in solidarity with their World War I allies. If you review World War II photographs, you will notice that early on, German soldiers always wore helmets in combat, but as unbelievable as it sounds today, it appears that equipment was so short that late in the war, many German soldiers weren't even issued helmets, but wore M43 field caps into battle. If I see a lot of Germans wearing Bergmützen in a photo, it is almost certainly from 1943 to 1945. The main exception to this was the Afrika Korps, who, after they dumped the pith helmet, seem to wear the field cap everywhere, probably because the desert heat and the lighter weight of the cap. By the way, this field cap is still referred to as Bergmütze and is used by the Bundeswehr even today. Next, you can tell what year the photo was taken by the expressions on the German soldiers' faces. When attacking Poland, France, and the early days against the Soviet Union, you can see a professional, cocky determination with enthusiasm. Just look at the expression of confidence on this Luftwaffe Fallschirmjäger's face in North Africa. Doesn't he look like he could take on the world? After the disastrous defeat of Stalingrad, and losses on every front from early 1943 on to the end of the war in 1945, the Germans' look is usually grim determination at best, or a distant apathetic stare. Let's put it this way, there are generally no German smiles after 1942. When you see very young German soldiers, you know that you are looking at a photo from either 1944 or 1945. If you look at these two young SS soldiers, the one on the right doesn't even have a belt, but a string. I don't know of any photos from even 1943 where a child of 14 years old or younger is in German uniform. Some historians have stated that the Germans were scraping the bottom of the barrel in 1942. That does depend on your definition of the bottom of the barrel, but nobody doubts that when you put a 12-year-old, or even younger, in a uniform, then your country has really gotten desperate. This soldier looks like he might be 10 years old or younger. When Germany started using child soldiers, they had to produce much smaller uniforms. Reenactors frequently take photos, and that's great. However, they almost always get something wrong. It is very rare, even in an expensive movie production, to have the soldier look historically perfect. The one movie that I believe was very close was Tom Cruise's movie, Valkyrie. Reenactors order their uniforms and sometimes it's the threading, the material, or something or another that is incorrect. So, since you've gotten this far in the video, perhaps the most interesting thing in dating photos is this. Before the invasion of Poland on September 1st, 1939, Adolf Hitler, whether as Chancellor or before he came to power, wore the Nazi Party armband on his left arm in the bicep area, as seen in this photo. However, once the war started, Hitler never again wore the armband to my knowledge. Someone asked Hitler about this and he stated that he wouldn't wear the Nazi armband while the war was on. It could be that Hitler would have put it back on once the war was won in Germany's favor. In this way, you can easily date a photo with Hitler as pre-war or later. If anyone has a verified photo of Hitler with a Nazi Party armband after the war started, then I would like to see it. Photos of Hitler in Austria after the Anschluss, in Sudetenland, and in Czechoslovakia are invasions, yes, but they are still pre-war photos, so those don't count. Of course, if Brad Pitt is in the photo, then you know it's recent. If you liked the video you just watched, then you may like these two other videos from EmersusTech.